Hey, good evening, Castlers. LDF07 here to recap a game that was uh, eventually became the biggest upset of the tournament, the 2022 Independence Day tournament, that is. It was the game between Kehicks from the USA with white pieces against Princessgold1 from the USA as well with the black pieces. Princessgold1 was the stronger rated player as he came in sporting a rating of 1395, almost 400 points higher than his opponent, Kehicks, who had a 1074 rating. And I don't have an avatar or a picture for Princess Gold. He's going to have to submit one, but I do have this avatar of Kehicks on the motorcycle. He's a big motorcycle aficionado. So with Princess Gold being 400 points higher than Kehicks, this should be a walk in the park for Princess Gold, no? Let's see what happened. Kehicks began with pawn to d4, and Princess Gold countered with pawn to c4, preparing for a quick pawn to d5. Trying to push that d5 pawn to the center. Hicks continues with a pawn to c4, which I like because it allows for you to develop your knight behind the c pawn, enabling you to cover more squares in the center, like so. You have that knight sitting right there behind that c pawn, and you're covering, e4, you're covering d5, you're covering b5, you're covering a4. So you're covering a lot of squares in the center, and that's your goal. I love the fact that Hicks is taking control of the center here, but Princess Gold 1 is developing his pieces toward the center as well. Now Hicks plays bishop to d3 right here. It's a good move, but knight c3 would have been better. Let me take that move back. Knight c3. It would have been better to defend the attacked e4 pawn, but, I'm nitpicking here. Princess Gold puts a relative pin on the knight. Hicks castles. Excellent move. The number one thing you should always think about is king safety. King safety is paramount in the game of chess. Hicks wants to kick the knight away. You get an exchange of pawns, and eventually Princess Gold moves the knight away. Hicks then wants to kick that bishop, kicks the bishop away, but I like Gold's response here with his ninth move of the game. Bam. Princess Gold takes the knight on f3, and it's a great move because he's going to win material, picking up the hanging pawn on e5 for free. Kehicks threatens the hanging knight with this queen, but Gold simply picks up more material by grabbing another bishop. So Gold is up big in material. Not go faster than speaking. He's a big on material, +4 to be exact. So Hicks tries to add pressure by pinning the knight and cut the material deficit. Then Gold blunders. He had been playing magnificently up until now. He plays pawn to g6, which was not needed because the pawn was already guarded by the bishop on f8 right here. The unfortunate gaffe allowed Kehicks to grab the knight on d3 and take aim at Gold's queen, cutting the deficit to 1. Good job by Hicks. Gold moves the queen out of harm's way, of course. Both players start maneuvering their pieces into better spots so they can become more active, and that's always a good thing. I want to fast forward to move 15, where Princess Gold, he plays pawn to e5 right here. This is a blunder because it weakens his position significantly when he could have simply played pawn to f6. Let me take that back. Right here, just play pawn to f6 and get that nagging bishop out of his house. Now Hicks could counter with, let's say, rook a to d1, doubling up the rooks here, and you continue with f takes g5, rook takes d7, Queen takes d7, and rook takes d7 again. King takes d7, queen f3. Yeah, gold has traded a queen for 2 rooks, but he's up +2 in material. And the eval bar, even though it says even, earlier it said it had him winning going away +8, so Stockfish is tripping right now. But I'll still take my chances with this position. But instead, he played pawn to e5. Let's get back to the actual game. Pawn e5, there we go. You play pawn e5, which would leave you vulnerable to, let's say, knight e4, like so. And that would also leave you open to all kinds of attacks, especially checks available on f6 right here, or d6. Especially with the rook dominating the semi-open d file, it's very dangerous for gold. Fortunately for him, Kehicks didn't play knight to e4, and instead played rook to e1. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there it is. So he played rook to e1. I want to fast forward to where, so it really didn't hurt gold with that move to rook to e1. I want to fast forward to move 21, where the position was even, but then Kehicks played pawn to g4. Right here, pawn to g4. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Now that's a blunder because it allows for gold to simply push the pawn for the dreaded, you see it, I bet you saw it before me, for the dreaded pawn fork. This pawn is now attacking Hicks's queen and rook. Great move by gold. Hicks then sacks his rook in the exchange and is now trailing by 5 material points. This is a surefire win for gold. The only thing left to do is to bring the 747 in for a smooth landing, but can he do it? It's the only thing. Got to be able to execute. Kehicks then checks gold's king with his queen. And you get king to h8. That's forced. Hicks smartly moves his rook out of harm's way. It was being threatened by the pawn. You get knight to e5, hitting the queen. Queen e6. Pawn h6. Hicks takes the free pawn, followed by a check from gold. Hicks moves. Gold protects his hanging g6 pawn. And then you get a combination where, if executed correctly, I'm ready to crown gold the winner, but he blundered. Let's take a look. Hicks plays rook f4. That's an excellent move because it creates a threat on the knight that cannot be ignored. So gold moves the knight to d4. Excellent move. He's threatening the queen, and it's protected by the g7 bishop. You get takes, and gold goes up in the exchange. But it leaves gold vulnerable to a check with the queen. Gold blocks with his bishop. Excellent move. Hicks plays pawn to f4, trying to get another attacker involved. I think including that knight would have been the better move. Maybe knight to e4, try to rearrange that knight, get him over, get him involved in the play. But again, that's nitpicking. So pawn to f4 was played. But then gold plays pawn to c5. Now gold could have played rook f8. Bam. That's a great but hard to find move. You would continue with bishop takes f8. And queen takes f7. Knight takes f7. Rook takes f8. And gold would be down in the exchange, but this is winning. Gold has a rook, bishop, and 2 pawn islands as compared to Hicks's 1 knight and 2 pawn islands. But instead, gold played pawn to c5. Let's go back. Right there, pawn to c5. Now, this c5 move, it allowed Hicks to push his pawn to f5, which is a great move. Takes, takes. Gold threatens the queen. Hicks checks the king. Gold moves. And then a great move by Hicks, attacking the bishop with the pawn and threatening checkmate with king takes g7. That's mate. Gold brilliantly takes the pawn with his rook. That was the only good move to be made. Hicks gobbles up the rook, and just like that, Kehicks has turned this losing position into an even position. Gold then puts 2 attackers on the bishop. Hicks defends with knight e8. But then gold commits the turning point of the game and a colossal blunder by playing rook takes f6, because that's checkmate in 2 moves, castlers. And I'm sure you see the eval bar on the left-hand side. Gold should have played, let's back it up. He should have played simply queen d7, like a waiting move or something. And then you get queen takes g7 check. Queen takes g7, bishop takes g7, rook takes e8, bishop takes h6, and then you get rook e1 check. No, that's not rook e1 check. That's rook e1 check. King g2, rook e2 check, and then you get king g3. Again, this is winning. You have a rook versus a dark squared bishop and 3 pawns to try to promote. I'll take my chances. But getting back, so that was mate in 2. So then, and before I even continue, this is just a great comeback by Hicks. I'm really proud of him. It's tremendous. He was doing cartwheels. I remember that day. Hicks takes the rook with his knight, which comes with a check on the king. Gold moves his king to f8, but that's to no avail, because the next move is mate with queen e8, checkmate, game over. Hicks has won this game. And this was the biggest upset in the 2022 Independence Day tournament. An outstanding comeback for the motorcycle aficionado from Long Island. In terms of where they both finished, let's look. Princess Gold, he went on to finish 4th in Group 1, and Kehicks finished 10th in Group 1. So that's going to do it for this broadcast. Once again, I'm IDT7 representing Let's Castle Chess Club, saying stay tuned, and I'll see you soon.